Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Habitat Learning Apps with Habitat Charlotte Region. Thank you for bearing with us. We had a few technical difficulties. I think that is due to the fact that I am currently with a lot of rain pouring down at my house, so my internet's doing some weird things. But thank you for sticking out for a few extra minutes. With me today, I have Ryan Carter, who's here to talk about advocacy and the big election that everyone has heard so much about. With early voting starting yesterday, we really wanted to make sure that we're getting our voice heard as much as possible. So we wanted to bring Ryan on to talk to you guys about that. So I'm just going to pass it over to Ryan because I don't know what I'm talking about as much as he does.
All right, thanks, Alex, and thank you all so much for having me. It's great to be with you today. As Alex mentioned, my name is Ryan Carter. I do the advocacy work for Habitat for Humanity of the Charlotte region. That pretty much, what does that mean? Pretty much means anything that involves elected officials, policy, legislation, community organizing, kind of a little bit of everything. I'm fortunate enough to do that. So today, as Alex mentioned, you may have heard, but it's election season. And lo and behold, early voting started yesterday. We had about 26,000 people vote yesterday in Mecklenburg County, so very, very exciting. But we want to talk about how does housing play into all of this, right? And what can you do to help make sure that housing stays on the forefront of not just our elected officials, but our community as well. So while I am a millennial, I'm technologically illiterate, so bear with us as Alex will most definitely be called in at some point to save the day, as she does quite regularly. So what type of presentation would this be without a slideshow? So we've got that ready and locked and loaded. If you have questions, please comment, file them in, type away, and we'll get to those. I try and think of a lot of stuff, but inevitably I'll miss it. So I love the saying that the only stupid questions are the ones that never get asked. So please be sure to ask questions. All right, without further ado, let's dive in. Cool. Alex, can they see the slideshow? Perfect. Okay, cool. So just to kind of go over the agenda, we've got a slight disclaimer at the beginning. We're going to talk about ways you can be a housing voter. What does that look like? Look at the election calendar, what's going on, early voting, and then we'll do kind of a deep dive on what to look for on your ballot. What's it going to look like, right? There's a lot of stuff on there, y'all. We're going to be real with you, but they're all very, very important things. All right, so quick disclaimer. Habitat for Humanity, the Charlotte region, does not endorse any candidate, political party, political action committee, or PAC, as we call them in the biz, or weigh in on electoral races. You may remember we've done bipartisan builds in the past where we invite candidates out for a day on a build site. We do not endorse candidates. We are happy to work with all candidates on their housing platform and really share what they can do in their specific role. So now that we've said that, we're good to go. Don't ask, and the one question, I know I said the only stupid questions are those that don't get asked. Please do not ask us who to vote for. We will not tell you who to vote for, but we can tell you what to vote for. We're going to dive into that later. All right. So important things to know. We know folks are moving to Charlotte left and right every day. So great ways to look stuff up, right? So where's my precinct? What district am I in? I know we've had redistricting pretty much every election cycle for the past 3 elections. So if you live in Mecklenburg County, this is a great way to do it. Let's see here. Just thinking about it. All right. So this is a great website. And I think, Alex, if you could drop that link into the chat box, that would be great. So this is our Mecklenburg County Board of Elections address lookup. So let's just go and look at 1325 Latrobe. Wait, hold on. What's our address?
3815.
That's it. I live at 1325, 3815. Thanks, Alex. I work for Habitat, I swear, you guys. All right, cool. So there's the address. It popped up. So we can see that we're in the 12th Congressional District, the 37th North Carolina Senatorial District, the 100th House District, and so on and so forth. You can also see your polling place, Billingsville Leadership Academy, formerly known as Billingsville Elementary School. You can even look up polling location map and directions there, right? It's also known as Precinct 17. So very important stuff to do there. And then I guess, Alex, this is the other link that we had, right? And this is how we can look up our ballots. So I'll go ahead and full disclosure, and y'all can take a look at my ballot. We'll do Ryan Carter. And you can even do sounds like. So if I wanted to say, I think that guy's name is Brian Carter, we could do that, but we're not going to do that. And then you can go down here, and I'm going to type in Mecklenburg because that's where I live. But if you live in Iredell County, you've got that option too, or anywhere in North Carolina. This is how you do it. All right, so then we'll go click search. Make sure that I'm for real. This is fun. All right, so as we see, Ryan Carter is a very popular name in our fair county, but that's me. So we're going to go click on sample ballots. And then we want to click on this one, that 1103 general election. Primaries, been there, done that. You can't vote there anymore, but you can vote here. All right, so here is my sample ballot. And again, everyone's will look a little different based on where you live. My next door neighbor has the same ballot as I do, but my neighbor across the street doesn't. So fun fact there about legislative districts. So, all right, so here's everything. You've got your president, your US Senate, your Council of States, all important races. But I want to really zoom in, and I think our next slide talks about this, so that's nice. All the way down here is the last three things. If you live in Charlotte, this is for you. If you live in Matthews, Pineville, North Meck, Iredell County, you can just tune out for a second or go find your own sample ballots, but please tune back in. So you've got bond referendum. We're going to dive into bonds later, but that's the last thing there. As I said earlier, Habitat does not endorse any candidates, any person, but we can endorse things such as ballot referendums, such as bonds. And we're going to dive into that later. So this is what your sample ballot looks like. Okay, Alex, how do I get back to the PowerPoint?
You should be able to hit the PowerPoint button in the bottom. Can you see that? Actually, no, you can't see that. Here, I got you. The fun of sharing a screen, guys.
There you go. Once again, Agnes saving the day for us all. All right. Let's see here. All right, so how to be a housing voter. Now we'll go back to the internet. So we put together, if you haven't checked out Habitat of the Charlotte Region's blog yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Some great content on there, one of which I'm proud to say I got to write, which just so happens to be this one. Look at that guy. So we put together this document on how you can be a housing voter, right? I'll be honest with y'all, it's been troubling to see affordable housing waning in our community's political consciousness. We're not seeing it really a lot on candidates' websites as much, on candidate forums that have been digital. Haven't had a lot of questions about what do you think about affordable housing. But you know what, it's a complicated issue. And thankfully we have organizations like Habitat and individuals like yourself who care about housing. So there's a couple things there. Vote yes for housing bonds. There's a gimme. Let your candidates know that affordable housing matters to you. It's part of my job is to talk to elected officials and candidates for office. So yeah, they'll hear it from me. They expect to hear it from me. They want to hear it from you. Your voice matters. You're their constituent. They can tune me out if they want to because, well, unless they're my elected officials, in which case they can't. But I don't live everywhere, so we need your help. So here's some samples of some great questions that you can ask your candidates and your elected officials alike, both of them. When in office, what do you want to do to support affordable housing? I think there's a great question there about what role can affordable housing play in addressing racial equity? And then also, how does it relate to your platform? What do you plan on doing in your specific office? Affordable housing is a big, big issue, and no level of government can solve it on their own. So it's what can your specific level do, right? We know that the county sets property tax rates, but the state has authority over property tax assistance programs. The city can't really do much about property taxes. So it's important to understand those things. And then here's some other great questions to ask. And then some resources down here, right? So some great stuff. The UNCC's Urban Institute came out with their racial equity, racial wealth gap report. Awesome stuff to do there. And then again, if you want to look up your district, you can do that here. There's the register to vote tab, and then become a habitat advocate. I send out, or we send out, excuse me, a bi-monthly kind of newsletter just about habitat happenings and what all is going on in the affordable housing advocacy arena. And then simple things that you can do, right? It could be something as simple as sharing an article that you read with 5 people, or something as complicated as going with me to Raleigh. Not everybody can do that. That's a bit much. But everything in between, and great ways for you to get involved. So definitely go check out the Habitat blog. Alex and the team on the marketing and communications does some great content there, not to mention this blog. So, Alex, are there any questions that you can see? I think I got the chat open.
Had myself muted. Not that I can see yet. I will tell everyone, if you are looking for where to put questions in, there's a control panel, usually to the right of your screen, that opens when you opened the GoToWebinar webinar. And there is both a chat section and a question section, and you can type into either of those. Over in the chat section is where I've been putting the links in, and the question section will pop up to me and Ryan.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Even I found it, y'all, so if I can find it, you can too. All right. So the election calendar. Voting by mail, if you can get your request in by October 27th, that's the deadline. But if you're early voting in Mecklenburg County, y'all, we are so blessed to be in a state and in a county that really values early voting. As you can see here, you have 33 options of places to vote. Some highlights there that, there's not a lot to be said about benefits of Corona, but you can go vote at the Spectrum Center, where our beloved Hornets play, Bank of America Stadium, where the Panthers play, or even Bojangles Coliseum if you're a hockey fan. So very cool stuff that you can do there. And as you can see, early voting, there's a lot of options, and I would really encourage folks to do that. A question came up. I've given this talk now. This is my 3rd time this week, so a question that did come up was early voting on election day, or mail-in. What do you suggest? That's got to be a personal call. I will share with you all what I plan on doing. I am very bad at paperwork. You can ask anybody in the office. I'm always doing it wrong, and there is always paperwork to be done. And so knowing that if you do an absentee ballot or vote by mail, whatever you want to call it, you've got to get some witnesses. You've got to make sure that you fill it out all correctly. And then that becomes essentially a provisional ballot. So those get counted at the end, right? So when the Board of Elections counts the votes, they'll do early voting first. So if you're a nerd like me and you log on right at 7 o'clock on election night, those numbers that pop up as to how everyone's doing, how many votes folks have, those are all the early voting numbers. So really important numbers there. And then they start counting the day of votes, right? So everyone who voted on the election day. So you're seeing, 9 out of 30 precincts reporting. That's kind of what you're seeing. And then the absentee ballots get cast. So I'm going to go vote in person. I'm a huge Teddy Roosevelt fan. His birthday is October 27th. I vote on that day to celebrate his life and legacy. So it's your call. Your vote will get counted, but you got to get it in, get that request in by October 27th. Other fun facts about early voting: if you're not registered to vote, or if you missed the deadline, early voting is your one-stop shop for all needs for the Board of Elections. So you can register to vote and vote on the exact same day through early voting. So that's a really great resource that we have there. Cool. All right. So what all's on the ballot? So there's a lot of stuff, right? That's the link to looking up your ballot again. Federal, state judges, local bonds, all sorts of fun things, right? But one of the big things that we want to talk about, there's a quick question there, right? Can I just leave it blank? Yes, you can, right? You don't have to fill out the entire ballot. I strongly encourage everyone to think closely and very hard about who you're going to vote for. But if you don't feel informed or confident to make a decision, it's okay to leave it blank. You don't have to fill it out just because. So I think that's an important thing, a big question I get asked a lot. All right, so next we have, housing bonds. There it is. All right, so I've been teasing it, I've been talking about it, and now we finally get to dive in. So what is a bond, right? In growing cities like Charlotte, you think of like bond money as like credit card money. You got a big purchase, you got to take out a loan for big expensive things, right? I'm living in my house, I'm sitting in my guest bedroom office right now at my house. I had to get a mortgage because I didn't have all this cash lying around. Buying a car, you got to pay for that. Paying for college, all these big things that cost money, that need money up front. Same goes for your public services. So roads, bridges, community parks, affordable housing, all of these things are very, very expensive and cost a lot of money. So we need these funds to help out. A common misconception about bonds is that it's going to raise your taxes. So false, so wrong. If you live in a community like Detroit, where they're seeing a decrease in the tax revenue, yeah, bonds are a bad idea. Charlotte, that is not the case. We're a growing city, we're a very healthy economy, so bonds are great. It's essentially bonded debt is what it's known as. So we budget for the debt payment. So transportation bonds, it's kind of a gimme. Some pretty self-explanatory there. Anything that has to do with transit, bridges, roads, light rail infrastructure, expanding. I know the blue line, they're expanding the platform so we can have more cars running because it's been so successful. Great example of a bond infrastructure project. Neighborhoods, right? If you ever want to do something cool in your neighborhood, chances are good it's been paid for by a neighborhood bond. So you think about those street art projects. I know there's a lot in NODA, South End along the blue line, along the rail trail. You've got a lot of those community art projects. I'm pretty sure the neighborhood, those little pop-up book libraries are also funded this way. So great way to designate money for those neighborhood initiatives. Okay, housing bond, really, really important step here, right? Question kind of comes up. I was at a meeting today with other bonds campaign staff. I'm on the bonds team, and we were talking about there's kind of infighting all the time about how should we spend this money, right? Nothing ruins a friendship faster than putting a big chunk of money in between two friends. Long story short, this is important money. If we don't vote yes for this, we won't have money to play with. I got word from city staff that, as you can see here, we've got 4 bullet points as to what they're used for. So new construction of rental multifamily, including housing for seniors, disabled, and homeless populations. Cool. Status quo is really what the trust fund has been used for in the past. We look at, so if for that as an example, you think about the development that was on Freedom Drive that our friends at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Housing Partnership put together. Great example. Multifamily preservation and rehabilitation. Think about our naturally occurring affordable housing or NOAA properties. Another great example. So the 2 last bullet points are really exciting stuff and things that haven't been in conversation before. So homeownership development in targeted neighborhoods, so areas where homeownership really isn't super common. How can we increase those owner-occupied rates up? And then acquisition of properties for developing mixed income communities. The city had launched a couple months ago a rehabilitation program where they go buy homes, single family homes that have fallen apart a little bit, give them some TLC, and then sell them back on the open market, but designated for affordable housing. So the city is not flipping houses. Habitat partners with the city on this project. Habitat is also not flipping houses, so very important to know there. So that's kind of bonds in a nutshell, specifically housing bonds. When we're done here, I would encourage you all to go to the Vote Yes for Bonds Facebook page. Housing and Neighborhood Services Director Pamela Weideman is actually doing a Facebook Live event. I'll be going there after this, and I'll be tuning in. I would encourage you to join me in that conversation as well. So without further ado, what questions do y'all have? I know I'm happy to share my email address. I know I talked fast. I had a lot of Julia's coffee this morning, so very, very amped up, and I get excited with election season. But what questions do y'all have? Alex, did I miss anything?
Haven't missed anything. There's a couple questions that came in that I realized you might not be able to see.
I did.
I have more privileges than you and GoToWebinar because it likes me more. So someone asked, how do we sign up for the newsletter that you sent out, or you talked about? I sent the link out and everyone should be able to see it. I'll also post that link in the chat. It's also, if you just go to habitatcltregion.org/advocacy and scroll to the bottom, you'll see it there as well. Sorry, yeah. I just did that one for you.
No, thanks. Also, if you're a fan of the Facebook, we actually have a Facebook group called the Habitat Charlotte Region Habitat Charlotte Region Advocacy Group. And that's kind of like I like to think of them as the advocacy militia that I can just share quick stuff with. And so folks can respond, engage with it in real time. So another great opportunity if you want to get something more than every other month.
Lori asks, what is the best place to get informed on our local candidates and their stances?
Oh, great question. So I would encourage you to check out their websites, right? It's always a good place to start. And then figure out what sort of civic organizations that you also like to be a part of. The Black Political Caucus came out with their list of endorsements. I know some of the environmental groups, Sierra Club comes out with their endorsements. So if you think about any organization that has some sort of issues that you really care about, they probably will have a list of endorsements. Your standard nonprofits, not so much. I know if you care about like judicial review or are more conservative leaning, there's groups out there that have their list of endorsements. And then on the left as well, same as said. So I encourage you to do that. Your candidates also, if you contact them, they're very, very responsive. I used to work and manage political campaigns and can attest that this time of year, candidates are a little sensitive and they're very likely to respond to your emails. So just reach out to them and ask. It's a great place to start.
How long do we think it will take for the Board of Elections to count all the ballots? And will it be like the governor's race in 2016?
Ooh, great question. I have great faith in the state of North Carolina. So I think we'll have North Carolina races called probably at least by Friday of election week. I can't say the same for other states. You know, who knows? It could be a week or two before we know who wins the presidency. But I think we'll have a good idea for the state of North Carolina, and particularly how many people in North Carolina vote early. We'll have a really good idea probably election night, if not, and I would assume all of our election results will, I would say by Friday of election week is when we can expect them to be certified. But that's my crystal ball speaking, not fact.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
What specific neighborhoods is Charlotte targeting for land acquisition?
Yeah, so I'll call it out. Our city really missed a golden opportunity with the Blue Line extension. There were no parcels of land that were purchased for any sort of public good, and that's really disheartening and really frustrating to see. But thankfully, our city learns from its mistakes, and so hopefully, the areas that the city is looking for this targeted acquisition is along our future corridors where transit's going in. So you think about the Silver Lake going into downtown Memphis and then out to the airport, the Red Line going up to North McIntyre uptown. As the Gold Line or a streetcar continues to mobilize that area. So there's high transit corridors as well as corridors of opportunity, so Bainford Road area, over by Elon Mall, those sorts of areas. Great question.
Do we think that the last affordable housing bond package was helpful and successful?
Yeah, it was, and there's a lot of different questions that come up about what is the money used for, right? Because we know housing, it's not just shelter, but it's access to opportunity, access to equity, all these sorts of things. And we are operating that trust fund, that bond allotment under some older pretenses of what to do. And the big concern of the city was numbers, right? So the fastest way to build up your numbers of affordable housing is subsidized multifamily. That makes sense. Where a community is really at a tough intersection is this upward mobility crisis and an affordable housing crisis. If it was just one or the other, we'd be doing all right. But we're in a really tough position with both. And with all the sadness that occurred with George Floyd's murder this summer, and so much unrest, I think there's been a really strong awakening about this idea of socioeconomic equity and racial equity. So yes, I think they were used for good. I want to say great, but they were used for a good purpose. But I have a really great feeling about this next bond package, and kind of now that we've done it once, we've learned. I think we'll be in a really good position moving forward.
And those are all the questions I see coming in. And it's about noon. My clock is blocked by my microphone and my PowerPoint presentation, but I'm assuming it's about noon. So we'll wrap it up there. I will put Ryan's email address in the chat. Also, after this webinar, you'll get an email with a recording of the webinar, and if you reply directly to that email, it will get sent to me. And either I can answer your questions or I will forward it on to Ryan to answer. So if you think of anything right after, if you're anything like me, when the first thing, as soon as it ends, I'm like, there's the question I wanted to ask. Go ahead and just email either of us and we'll get your question answered. Ryan, is there anything else you want to say before we end?
Go vote. No excuses. Go vote. Period.
Yes,
And vote yes for
please.
bond.
Yes, please go vote. Everyone go do that right after this. Thank you guys so much for dealing with our technical difficulties. My computer trying to restart in the middle of this, getting Teams notifications in the corner of it. And we'll see you all next month. Bye.